You have come to the end of all stories, and yet the beginning waits just beyond your breath. Tonight, as you close your eyes, the universe leans close to remember itself through you. The stars above you are older than memory, but they still remember your name. Every sigh of wind, every flicker of light is the cosmos whispering, "Rest now, traveler of worlds." You have walked through ages, from creation to silence, from fire to love, from awakening to return, and now the great dream calls you home. Let go of the day. Let go of thought. The story of everything has become the rhythm of your breathing. In this forgotten world of sleep, the universe will dream through you once more. Before sound, before movement, before even the idea of before, there was silence. Not the silence of absence, but a living stillness, vast and endless, stretching beyond thought itself. In that timeless expanse, there was no sky, no earth, no fire or wind. There was only Brahman, the infinite, the formless, the one reality behind all realities. It neither existed nor did it not exist. It was beyond light and darkness, beyond being and non-being, an eternal awareness, resting within itself, content in boundless calm. In that immeasurable stillness, time had not yet begun its dance. There was no heartbeat, no rhythm, no breath, and yet, hidden within that quiet, lay the seed of all potential, the spark that would one day bloom into stars, rivers, trees, and living souls. When the vast silence grew full, like a cloud heavy with rain, creation stirred for the first time. A pulse moved through the void, soft at first, then deep, resonant, like the first note of an ancient song. That vibration became the sacred sound, the OM, from which all frequencies, all worlds, all beings would eventually emerge. The awareness of Brahman, turning inward upon itself, became a mirror of creation. And from that mirror arose the first manifestation, Brahma, the creator, awakening from timeless sleep. He opened 4 eyes, one for each direction, and beheld only the vast, endless sea of potential. Beneath him stretched the cosmic ocean, shimmering with unformed light, and upon those waters floated Vishnu, the preserver, serene in meditation, his breath steady as eternity. Coiled beneath him lay the 1,000-headed serpent Ananta, whose endless loops held the framework of reality itself. Every movement of the serpent's body sent ripples through space and time. From Vishnu's navel blossomed a golden lotus, its petals glowing with the warmth of 1,000 suns. Its scent filling the void with sweetness. Upon that lotus sat Brahma, young as dawn and ancient as infinity. For a moment, he did not know who he was or why he existed. The stillness around him was so complete that it felt like a living presence. He looked in every direction and saw only himself reflected in endless water. Then, deep within, he heard the faint echo of that first vibration, the eternal OM, calling him to awaken, to create, to begin the great unfolding. In response to that call, Brahma closed his eyes and listened. The sound swelled, filling the emptiness with patterns and rhythm. From it arose thought, and from thought form. Light and shadow danced together, weaving the fabric of reality. The great wheel of time began to turn, not forward, but in vast circles, each circle containing countless smaller cycles, each pulse giving rise to universes that would bloom and fade like breath. There would be golden ages of purity and wisdom, and darker times of struggle and forgetfulness, all part of the same endless rhythm. Out of the stillness, the first elements emerged. Space, vast and open, air moving and alive, fire, bright and transforming, water, flowing and nurturing, and earth, steady and strong. They were the bones and breath of creation, the foundation upon which all beings would rise. Through them, the once silent Brahman began to dream worlds into being. And yet, even as galaxies formed and life prepared to bloom, the stillness remained, untouched, undiminished, watching. It whispered softly, beneath every sound and heartbeat, reminding all that creation itself was not a departure, but a rhythm of breath, an eternal dance between the silent infinite and the worlds it dreamed. And in that quiet knowing, the cosmos began to hum, a lullaby older than time, cradling existence in the arms of endless peace. In the beginning, the void was not empty. It was alive, filled with potential waiting to take shape, like a dream that had not yet decided what to become. From this ocean of stillness, the first ripples of creation began to spread. Each ripple was a whisper of intention, a gentle murmur echoing through endless space. The great awareness, Brahman, did not command, did not speak in words. It simply breathed, and from that breath, the worlds were born. Vishnu, the preserver, floated upon the cosmic sea in timeless meditation. His eyes were closed, but within that calm, he held the pattern of everything that would ever exist. The serpent Ananta coiled beneath him, its infinite body looping through unseen dimensions, supporting the universe like a spine of eternity. Each breath Vishnu took set the rhythm for all creation. Inhalation for birth, exhalation for rest. When he finally opened his eyes, the first dawn of reality shimmered across the waters. From his navel rose the golden lotus, glowing brighter than 1,000 suns. It unfurled slowly, each petal a new layer of existence, and upon that lotus, Brahma awakened, the dreamer within the dream. Confused by the immensity before him, Brahma looked in every direction and saw nothing but endless water and light. He called out into the void, but no echo returned. The silence was absolute. For countless ages, he sat in thought, searching for his origin, for meaning, for a voice that would answer. Then, from the depths below, he heard the soft hum of Vishnu's presence, a vibration so ancient and gentle that it soothed his restless heart. The hum became a rhythm, and the rhythm became knowledge. From that moment, Brahma remembered who he was, a fragment of the infinite, born to shape the formless into beauty. He folded his hands in reverence toward Vishnu, and from his breath emerged the sacred syllables of Om. The sound filled the void like the first heartbeat of the cosmos. It resonated through every atom of possibility, awakening matter and light, space and time. The syllable A became the world of waking life. U became the realm of dreams and subtle visions, and M embraced the silence of deep sleep, the space where everything rests before beginning again. Together, they formed the eternal vibration that would echo in every chant, every breath, every thought. As the sound expanded, so did creation itself. Galaxies spun like sparks from a cosmic flame. Invisible energies wove together, shaping stars, worlds, and the invisible threads that connect them. Brahma saw that creation was not a single act, but a rhythm, an endless breathing of worlds into being. Each exhalation birthed new realms. Each inhalation drew them back into the stillness. It was a dance without beginning or end. Then came the 5 elements, subtle, luminous, alive. Space opened first, vast and pure, giving room for all things to exist. From space came air, the movement of life itself. From air came fire, the energy that transforms and illuminates. From fire flowed water, the gentle nurturer that carries memory and change. And from water, earth condensed, solid, stable, the foundation for every dream to take form. These 5 became the bones of reality, woven together by unseen harmony. Through their union, the universe gained color, weight, and sound. Brahma looked upon his work and felt wonder, for even in its incompleteness, creation was magnificent. He understood then that he was not merely a maker, but a listener, listening to the eternal rhythm of Brahman through his own heart. Every breath he took sent new possibilities into motion, and every pause between breaths reminded him that nothing was ever lost. All would return to the stillness from which it came, only to be reborn again in new forms. The golden lotus swayed gently on the cosmic sea, its petals reflecting constellations, yet unborn. The air shimmered with colors beyond imagination, and somewhere in that vastness, a soft voice, not a sound but a presence, whispered through eternity. Create, preserve, and dissolve, for in this rhythm lies truth. And so, with closed eyes and a steady breath, Brahma began to weave the tapestry of existence, each thread a world, each shimmer a soul, all spun from the same endless light. When creation first stirred, time had not yet learned how to walk. It floated, vast and formless, like mist over a still ocean. Moments did not yet follow one another. They simply existed, layered upon each other like the petals of an infinite flower. Brahma, seated upon the golden lotus, beheld this timeless sea, and wondered how order could emerge from so much perfection. The thought alone was enough to set the first rhythm in motion. And so, time began, not as a straight line, but as a great wheel turning in endless circles. Each revolution of this cosmic wheel was called a kalpa, a day and night in the life of Brahma himself. One kalpa stretched over 4 billion human years, a single breath in the eternity of the divine. When Brahma opened his eyes, creation awakened. When he closed them, everything dissolved again into stillness. Birth and dissolution, dawn and dusk, inhalation and exhalation. The rhythm was perfect, and all of existence followed it. Within each kalpa, smaller cycles turned. Thousands of spinning wheels nested inside the greater one. These were the yugas, the ages of the world. The first was the Satya Yuga, the golden age of purity and truth, when beings lived in harmony with the cosmic order. The second, the Treta Yuga, saw the first shadows of desire and division. Then came the Dvapara Yuga, when light and darkness walked side by side in uneasy balance. And at last, the Kali Yuga, the age of discord and forgetfulness, when virtue stood on one trembling leg, and humanity, though brilliant, wandered far from its source. But even this decline was part of the plan. For what is light, if not defined by its contrast with darkness? The eternal intelligence had designed the cycles so that awareness could evolve through experience, learning, forgetting, and remembering again. Every fall was a preparation for rising. Every night promised a new dawn. As Brahma watched the wheel turn, he perceived time not as punishment, but as compassion, a way for the infinite to taste its own possibilities. Each age allowed consciousness to explore a new face of itself. Innocence in the golden age, power in the silver, conflict in the bronze, and resilience in the iron. Through joy and sorrow, through wisdom and loss, the universe learned to know itself. Surrounding Brahma's creation were greater patterns still, 14 vast realms, each vibrating at its own frequency. At the top shone Satya Loka, where awareness remained pure and luminous, its inhabitants free from fear and attachment. Below it, realms of light and learning, where souls refined their understanding through experience. Farther down were the dense worlds of shadow and struggle, where awareness forgot its origin to rediscover it through effort. Even the lowest realms, heavy with suffering, served the same sacred purpose: to awaken what had been asleep. To guide these worlds, Brahma appointed 14 Manas, the archetypal first beings of each age, each one a caretaker of humanity's evolution. Through their wisdom, societies rose and fell, kings ruled and disappeared, and civilizations blossomed like flowers upon the surface of time. Each age left its echo, a faint vibration that could be felt by those who listened deeply enough. For the past never truly vanished, it simply changed form. In the space between ages, Vishnu slept once more, his breathing slow and steady upon the cosmic ocean. Each breath released galaxies, each pause reclaimed them, and while he rested, Shiva began his dance, a dance of dissolution, fierce yet graceful, spinning through the heavens with arms like lightning. Every motion destroyed what had become stagnant, making way for renewal. Thus, the universe was never still. It pulsed, breathed, lived, its stillness alive with movement, its movement anchored in stillness. As the great will continued to turn, time ceased to be something to fear. It became a sacred rhythm, a song echoing through eternity. Every being, from gods to grains of dust, moved in step with that unseen melody. And in the heart of it all, the eternal stillness remained, watching, waiting, smiling softly, as the grand tapestry of existence wove itself again and again from the same endless light. As time began to weave its endless circles, creation itself sought balance. The stars had formed, the oceans shimmered, and the vast spaces between worlds hummed softly with life, yet unborn. But motion without harmony is chaos, and stillness without renewal becomes decay. So, from the breath of the infinite, three subtle forces arose, unseen, but ever present. They were called the gunas, threads woven through every aspect of existence. Through them, the universe would move, sleep, and awaken again. The first was sattva, the current of light, clarity, and harmony. It shone like a gentle dawn over the sleeping cosmos, bringing peace, truth, and illumination wherever it touched. In sattva's embrace, everything moved with natural grace. Its essence was balance, neither too much nor too little. It lifted hearts toward wisdom, softened minds toward kindness, and made the stars themselves pulse in perfect rhythm. All things touched by sattva found purpose and serenity, as if remembering, faintly, their origin in the stillness of Brahman. The second force rose like fire, Rajas, the restless flame of passion and motion. It burned with hunger to create, to transform, to move forward. Rajas was the heartbeat of time, the spark that turned still waters into flowing rivers, the will that pushed seeds through the soil toward sunlight. It stirred ambition in gods and men alike, carving mountains, shaping empires, and igniting the yearning that made life expand and evolve. Without Rajas, nothing would change. Without its heat, even light would sleep forever. Yet unchecked, it could consume what it created. For desire's flame is beautiful, but never still. The third force came last, tamas, the shadow of rest, the cradle of endings. It was darkness, not of evil, but of peace and silence. Tamas drew all things toward stillness, allowing exhausted energies to return to the void. It was the pull of night after day, the quiet between heartbeats, the soil that receives fallen leaves and turns them into life again. Without tamas, there could be no sleep, no pause between one breath and the next. But when it thickened too deeply, it became inertia, blindness, the forgetting of the divine spark. Still, even in that heaviness, purpose was hidden. For what seems like death is only the preparation for rebirth. Thus the three forces, sattva, rajas, and tamas, began to dance. Their motion was the heartbeat of creation itself. Where sattva shone too brightly, rajas stirred to movement. Where rajas burned too fiercely, tamas soothed and cooled. And when tamas lingered too long, sattva rose again like morning light, awakening the world anew. Together, they formed the great rhythm that keeps existence in motion without end. Every being, every thought, every breath was woven from these three in different measures, a shifting melody of light, passion, and rest. Brahma watched the interplay and smiled. He saw how these forces shaped all forms, how each star and soul carried their mixture, some bright and serene, some restless and fierce, others deep and silent as stone. He saw that harmony was not the absence of contrast, but the balance of opposites. The universe was not a single note, but a chord, a harmony of creation, preservation, and dissolution. Through sattva, beings would seek truth and compassion. Through rajas, they would build love and strive. Through tamas, they would rest, forget, and begin again. These were not enemies, but partners in the eternal dance of existence. Three colors blending into one light. From their union, the seasons would turn. The hearts of gods and mortals alike would rise and fall, and the music of creation would continue without pause. And in the quiet beyond all movement, the stillness of Brahman remained, unchanged and eternal. The forces were its breath, its dream, its song, but never its limit. For even as the universe shimmered with birth and decay, beneath it all, there lay that same gentle silence, holding every flame, every shadow, in endless peace. When the first light spread across the newborn heavens, Brahma looked upon the vast ocean of creation and felt a quiet ache. The world was beautiful, yet silent. It shimmered with potential, but had no song of its own. The mountains stood like sleeping giants. The rivers whispered only to themselves, and the stars burned without witness. Creation longed for awareness, for eyes that could see, hearts that could feel, and voices that could praise the beauty of existence. So Brahma, seated upon his golden lotus, closed his four eyes and dreamed once more. From the stillness of that meditation came vibration, and from vibration, form. He divided his thought into 7 streams, each carrying a different note of divine wisdom. From these currents, the Sapta Rishis were born, the 7 great sages, first among conscious beings. Their radiance filled the heavens like 7 new suns. They were not bound by time or flesh, but by purpose, each carrying the memory of the infinite. The first was Marichi, the ray of light that pierces the dawn. Through him came awareness, the power to perceive truth. The second was Atri, the seer of balance, whose voice sang the harmony between heaven and earth. The third, Angiras, carried the sacred fire, keeper of transformation and sacrifice. The fourth, Pulasatya, was the whisperer of order, from whom lineage and discipline were born. The fifth, Pulaha, embodied growth, the quiet strength of roots and rivers. The sixth, Cradle, bore the will to act, the energy that turns thought into creation. And the seventh, Vashista, the luminous sage of stillness, held within him the reflection of Brahman itself, pure awareness resting in peace. Together, the 7 sages became the first teachers of existence. They moved through the worlds like winds of understanding, planting seeds of knowledge in the soil of time. Their voices shaped the first hymns. Their thoughts became the first scriptures, and their silence became the space between all wisdom. From them descended lineages of beings, gods, spirits, ancestors, and mortals, each carrying a spark of that original awareness. Brahma watched their light spread through the cosmos, and smiled, for creation was no longer silent. The rishis' thoughts vibrated through the air, and the elements began to sing their own melodies. Mountains hummed in deep tones, rivers laughed in silver voices, and the wind whispered secrets to the stars. The world had found its rhythm, a great chorus in which every being had a part to play. Then, from the divine breath, came the 14 realms of existence, 7 above and 7 below. The upper worlds shimmered with radiance. Satya Loka, the realm of pure truth. Tapaloka, where great souls meditated in eternal flame. Jana Loka, the world of enlightened beings. Mahar Loka, where wisdom and light intermingled. And the middle world, Boloka, our earth, where spirit and matter embraced. Beneath it stretched subtler realms of shadow and learning, each a reflection of consciousness at a different vibration. These worlds were not prisons or rewards, but classrooms for the soul. In the luminous worlds, beings remembered their divine nature. In the darker ones, they learned through struggle, refining their hearts through trial and longing. Even in shadow, the presence of light was never lost, for Brahma had woven compassion into the very pattern of existence. Wherever ignorance grew, understanding would one day blossom. Wherever darkness spread, a spark of light would survive. The Sapta Rishis wandered between realms, their luminous forms untouched by distance or decay. They whispered the laws of harmony to gods and mortals alike. They taught that every being, from the smallest seed to the greatest star, was a thread in the same divine tapestry. Each thread was sacred, each vibration necessary to the song of the universe. And when they had completed their first work, the 7 sages stood before Brahma once more. Their voices blended like 7 tones of one chord. Lord of creation, they said, your worlds are alive. The silence now sings. Brahma opened his four faces and beheld them with joy. "Then creation is complete," he whispered, "for knowledge has awakened within itself." The great lotus trembled gently on the cosmic sea. The stars swayed in rhythm to that truth, and the first breath of divine awareness drifted through all realms like perfume. Life had begun not with conquest, but with understanding, and in the quiet that followed, the universe exhaled, peaceful, radiant, and alive. When the seven sages had sung the first hymns of harmony, the universe trembled with joy. Light moved freely through the heavens, and all creation shimmered with balance. Yet even within perfection, there stirred the faintest whisper of tension, for without contrast, even beauty has no shape. Thus, from the same divine source, two great currents arose, one radiant, the other dark, each necessary to define the other. They were not enemies at first, but reflections, twin rivers flowing from a single ocean. The radiant ones came to be known as the Devas, the shining beings, guardians of harmony, born of clarity. Their hearts were filled with sattva, the essence of truth and compassion. They moved with gentleness, speaking softly to the winds, guiding stars into their courses, and nurturing the growing worlds below. Their leader was Indra, Lord of Storms, whose thunderbolts carried both power and mercy. By his side stood Agni, the fire that transforms, Varuna, keeper of the cosmic waters, Vayu, the breath of life, and Surya, the sun whose gaze awakens every dawn. From the other current rose the Asuras, born not of malice, but of ambition and fire. They too were divine, but carried within them the restless energy of Rajas. They sought not destruction, but mastery, to claim the universe's light as their own. They built palaces of brilliance, studied the secrets of the elements, and spoke in voices like thunder rolling through deep caverns. Among them were great beings, Vairocana, Hiranyakashipu, Bali, and Rahu, each mighty, each radiant in his own way, each believing that creation's glory should be theirs to command. For a time, the Devas and Asuras coexisted, their strengths balancing the cosmos like day and night. But as ages turned, their natures drew them apart. The Devas sought harmony through surrender, the Asuras through conquest. Where one saw unity, the other saw hierarchy. Where one bowed in reverence, the other reached in defiance. And so began the first great conflict, not of armies or weapons, but of ideals and intention. The heavens filled with murmurs as light and shadow gathered their hosts. The Devas glowed like dawn mist over golden mountains. The Asuras blazed like molten suns, fierce and untamed. Even the stars paused in their paths to watch. When the first thunderclap rang across the void, its echo shaped the rhythm of all future battles. Lightning tore through the clouds, not as rage, but as creation's heartbeat. The eternal struggle between what must rise and what must fall. Indra, riding upon his white elephant Airavata, led the Devas with calm courage. He fought not for domination, but for balance. Each strike of his thunderbolt restored order. Where chaos had begun to bloom, the Asuras charged with fire in their veins and stars in their eyes. Their power was raw, magnificent, terrifying, born from the same divine source that had birthed their foes. For in truth, both sides were children of Brahma, each playing their part in the story of becoming. For eons, neither side triumphed. When the Devas grew weary, compassion would rekindle their strength. When the Asuras faltered, their desire to rise again made them powerful once more. And Brahma, watching from his lotus, did not intervene. He saw that the conflict itself was sacred, that through it, creation would learn rhythm. Just as day needs night and seed needs soil, the universe required tension to grow. From the clash of their energies, new worlds were born. Comets streaked through the skies. Mountains rose from molten plains, and the first sparks of mortal life began to shimmer in distant corners of space. Every victory and loss echoed through these worlds, imprinting within all beings the memory of duality, the understanding that good and evil light and dark, are not separate destinies, but opposing wings of the same bird. At last, when the battle's song faded into silence, the Devis and Asuras stood at opposite ends of the sky, their eyes reflecting one another like mirrors. Each saw in the other their own reflection, the courage, the pride, the longing to be whole. In that quiet recognition, the first war ended, not with conquest, but with understanding. The Devis withdrew to the higher realms, guarding order and compassion. The Asuras descended into deeper planes, where fire and ambition would forge their destiny. And in the stillness that followed, the universe breathed once more. The stars resumed their ancient songs, and creation continued to unfold, balanced forever between light and shadow, conflict and peace, heaven and earth. The dance had begun, and it would never end. After the long wars between the Devis and the Asuras, the heavens grew weary. The balance of the cosmos trembled, for neither side had truly won. The Devis, once radiant and powerful, had lost much of their strength. Their light flickered like candles in the wind. The Asuras, though fierce, were exhausted, their victories hollow, their ambitions unsatisfied. Even the stars seemed dimmer, and the rivers of creation flowed slower through the worlds. It was then that Vishnu, the preserver of all things, looked upon the fading heavens and decided that renewal must come. He called upon both Devis and Asuras to meet upon the shore of the cosmic sea, the Kshira Sagara, the ocean of milk. Its waves shimmered with silver light, and within its depths lay the secret of immortality, the sacred nectar Amrita. But it was hidden, buried deep beneath the ocean's infinite weight, and only through cooperation could it be brought forth. Thus, for the first time since creation began, the forces of light and shadow stood side by side. The Devis bowed in respect. The Asuras stood proud and unyielding. Yet both agreed, for the promise of Amrita was too great to ignore. Vishnu, ever patient, gave them instructions. The ocean, he said, is the womb of creation. To awaken its treasures, you must churn it as one churns milk to draw butter. But such a task cannot be done by strength alone. It requires unity, purpose, and sacrifice. At Vishnu's command, the great mountain Mandara was chosen as the churning rod, and the mighty serpent Vasuki, Shiva's companion, became the rope. The Devis took hold of the serpent's tail, the Asuras of its head. They began to pull, back and forth, again and again, until the mountain itself began to spin. Its base sank into the depths, and the cosmic sea roared with the sound of thunder. Waves rose to the heavens. Lightning flashed across eternity. The churning shook all worlds. Beings of light and shadow cried out in awe. Stars spun in their courses, and the sky changed colors like molten metal. From the depths of the sea, wonders began to rise, each one a mystery of its own. First came Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow, giver of nourishment to gods and men alike. Then emerged Airavata, the white elephant of Indra, his tusks gleaming like moonlight. Kalpavriksha, the tree of plenty, rose next, bearing fruits of every desire. And from the foam of the waves, the radiant goddess Lakshmi appeared, beauty made manifest, grace in human form. Her smile rekindled light in the hearts of the weary. When she placed a garland of lotus upon Vishnu's neck, harmony returned to heaven. But not all that surfaced was gentle. With the treasures came terror. A black poison, Halahala, seeped from the depths, so deadly that its vapors threatened to destroy creation itself. The Devis and Asuras fell to their knees, their strength failing as the heavens turned dark. Then, from the stillness beyond time, rose Shiva, the lord of dissolution. Without hesitation, he took the venom in his palms and drank it whole. The poison burned his throat, turning it blue as twilight, and from that day, he was known as Nilakantha, the blue-throated one, the savior who held death within himself so others might live. The churning continued for ages. The ocean glowed like a living star, its waves birthing marvels and mysteries without end. Finally, after countless revolutions, a radiant figure emerged from the heart of the sea. He carried a golden pot filled with the Amrita, the nectar of immortality, its fragrance pure as dawn, its glow brighter than 1,000 suns. The Devas reached forward in reverence. The Asuras stepped forward in greed. Once again, tension filled the air. Then Vishnu, ever wise, took the form of Mohini, a celestial enchantress of incomparable beauty. Her eyes shone like soft moonlight, her smile gentle yet commanding. She offered to distribute the nectar equally, but only if both sides obeyed her word. The Asuras, captivated by her grace, agreed without question, and as she moved among them, she served first the Devas, ensuring that righteousness would endure. When the Asuras realized the trick, it was already too late. The Devas had regained their light, and the balance of heaven was restored. Only one Asura, Rahu, managed to taste a drop of the nectar, but before it could bless him, Vishnu struck with his discus, severing his head from his body. Even so, the power of Amrita kept him alive. From that day, his head became the shadow that swallows the sun and moon, the eternal eclipse that reminds creation of the fine line between hunger and wisdom. When the last wave calmed, the ocean fell silent once more. Its treasures had been drawn forth, its lessons learned, and though the Devas shone again in glory, Vishnu's eyes remained watchful, for he knew that balance, once restored, must always be tended, for shadow follows light, and light in time returns to shadow. Thus the universe continued its rhythm, soft and eternal, as the stars above shimmered like foam from the still churning sea of creation. Long after the churning of the cosmic ocean began, the heavens were still trembling. The Devas and Asuras pulled the great serpent Vasuki back and forth, each movement shaking the roots of creation. Mount Mandara turned endlessly, its golden slopes grinding against the sea of milk. From its depths came treasures, yes, but also something neither side had foreseen. A cloud of darkness began to rise from the deep, thick and pulsing with venom. The waves turned black, and the stars themselves seemed to dim in fear. It was Halahala, the poison of dissolution, the concentrated shadow of all impurity, all forgotten deeds and restless desires since the dawn of time. Its very breath corroded worlds, and wherever it spread, the air thickened with silence and pain. The Devas fell to their knees, coughing in despair. Even Indra's lightning faltered. The Asuras covered their faces, their strength no match for that dreadful vapor. The serpent Vasuki writhed in agony, its scales blistering with every breath. The ocean roared, the sky cracked, and the very balance of existence began to crumble. It was then that every being, from the highest god to the smallest spark of life, called upon one name, Shiva. From the Himalayas came a stillness that silenced the storm. Upon a peak of snow that never melted, the great Lord sat in meditation, eyes half closed, his breath in perfect rhythm with eternity. He had heard the cry long before it was spoken, for the heart of the universe beats within him. He rose, his movement slow, deliberate, like dawn breaking after endless night. The earth trembled softly under his steps, and even the stars bowed as he walked through the heavens. When Shiva reached the ocean's edge, the Devas and Asuras bowed low. "Lord," they pleaded, "the poison has escaped the depths. If it spreads, all will end, the heavens, the worlds, even time itself." But Shiva only smiled, a calmness deeper than fear shining in his eyes. "The poison is not your enemy," he said softly. "It is the shadow of creation, the price of birth. If I do not take it, all that exists will fall into silence forever." Then, with infinite grace, he stepped into the churning sea. The waves parted around him, as if the water itself understood. He cupped his hands and gathered the poison, thick, black, and glowing like molten night. As he lifted it, the heavens wept. The gods turned away, unable to bear the sight. But Shiva, serene and unmoving, brought the poison to his lips and drank. The fire of Hala Hala blazed through his being, racing through his veins like a storm of suns. The universe trembled as its heat spread. Mountains cracked, rivers froze, and the stars flickered as if about to die. Parvati, his beloved, rushed to his side, her face radiant with both love and fear. She placed her hand gently upon his throat, stopping the venom before it could descend into his heart. Her touch cooled the inferno, turning the deadly poison into a luminous blue. From that moment, Shiva's throat shimmered with eternal twilight, and he became Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. The heavens sighed with relief. The air cleared. The waves grew calm, and life once again began to breathe. The Devas wept in gratitude. Even the proud Asuras lowered their eyes, for in that single act, Shiva had proven that destruction, in its truest form, is mercy. He had taken into himself all that was unendurable, transforming death into stillness and terror into peace. When the last echoes of the poison faded, Shiva returned to his mountain, his form glowing softly against the night sky. He resumed his meditation, not to rest, but to hold the balance within. From his stillness flowed renewal. The forest bloomed again, the rivers sang once more, and the stars rekindled their ancient fires. Even Hala Hala, now purified, became part of the great circle, its energy transformed into strength for creation to begin anew. Since that day, the wise remember him not as a god of endings, but as the guardian of beginnings. His blue throat reminds all beings that every shadow hides a purpose, and that compassion, when complete, can embrace even poison without fear. In silence, he continues to watch over the turning worlds, his eyes closed, his heart awake, his breath steady as eternity itself. The storm had passed. The great ocean lay calm again, its waves glimmering like molten silver beneath an endless twilight. The Devas and Asuras, exhausted but unbroken, stood in silence upon the shore of eternity. From the depths where poison once seethed, a faint golden light began to rise, soft at first, then radiant, until the entire sea seemed to glow with living dawn. Every heart turned toward it. Even the gods, wearied by ages of struggle, felt hope stir again in their immortal veins. The light grew brighter, taking shape, and from the churning waters emerged a being of incomparable beauty. Dhanvantari, physician of the gods, his hands bearing a golden vessel filled with the Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Its fragrance drifted across the heavens, sweet, pure, and filled with promise. The air trembled as all creation leaned closer. Within that pot shimmered the essence of eternal life, the distillation of all light, all love, and all awareness. For a moment, even time itself seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. But peace rarely lasts long when desire awakens. The Asuras, eyes blazing with hunger, stepped forward. "This," they cried, "is ours by right. We labored, we bled, we churned the sea." The Devas, calm yet firm, replied, "Without us, you could not have drawn it forth. It belongs not to one side, but to the balance of the worlds." Their words fell into the air like sparks into dry grass, and soon the shore of the cosmic sea erupted once more into chaos. Devas and Asuras wrestled amid the golden light, their voices shaking the heavens. Even the waves recoiled, for greed had entered the sacred work. The pot slipped from hand to hand, its glow dimming as conflict defiled its purity. If spilled, the Amrita would vanish forever, and with it, the hope of renewal. Then, a presence stirred, like music before it is played. The air grew still, and from within the horizon of light appeared Vishnu, the preserver, whose calm could silence storms. Yet this time, he did not come as the god of blue skin and endless compassion. He came as Mohini, a form so radiant that even starlight bowed in shame. Her beauty was not of the flesh, but of balance itself, the perfect harmony between grace and wisdom, between allure and truth. The Devas and Asuras fell silent. Even the ocean stopped moving, Mohini smiled, a quiet curve of lips that carried the power to still entire worlds. Her eyes glowed like soft moons, and her voice, when she spoke, was as gentle as the wind that moves over calm waters. "You seek immortality," she said, "but not all who drink shall find life. Immortality belongs not to power, but to those who serve the rhythm of the cosmos. If you trust me, I will divide the nectar justly. If not, you may fight until all is lost." Both sides, captivated beyond reason, agreed. The Asuras, entranced by her voice, forgot suspicion. The Devas bowed their heads, understanding that wisdom had taken form before them. With slow, deliberate grace, Mohini began to pour the Amrita. The vessel gleamed like liquid sunlight. She moved among the Devas first, her hand steady, her gaze serene. Each god received a measure of the nectar, and as they drank, their light returned. Their eyes brightened like newborn stars. The Asuras watched in silent wonder, their desires rising like flames in the dark. But when Mohini turned toward them, she only smiled, and the vessel, now empty, shimmered and vanished in her hands. Realization spread like fire among them. They had been deceived, not through malice, but through divine intelligence. The nectar had gone to those who would protect the balance, not destroy it. In fury, the Asuras roared, their cries shaking the sea once more. Yet even in their rage, they could not touch her, for she was illusion itself. Maya, the wisdom that wears beauty as its veil. Only what among them Rahu, clever beyond his kin, sensed the trick before it was complete. Disguising himself as a deva, he slipped among the shining ranks and drank a mouthful of Amrita. But the sun and moon, guardians of truth, saw the deception and cried out to Vishnu. In an instant, the discus of divine justice, Sudarshana, flew across the sky. Swift as thought, bright as revelation, it struck Rahu, severing his head from his body. Yet the nectar had already touched his throat. His body died, but his head lived on, immortal, consumed by endless hunger. And so, from that day, he chases the sun and moon across the heavens, swallowing them during eclipses, only to spit them out again. For truth cannot be devoured forever. When the last echoes faded, Mohini's form dissolved into radiant mist. Vishnu's true presence returned, calm, eternal, and smiling. The Devas bowed, their light restored. The Asuras withdrew into the shadows, their anger simmering like coals beneath the earth. But creation itself had been reborn. The stars shone brighter, rivers flowed sweeter, and the rhythm of balance beat again in the heart of all things. High upon his mountain, Shiva watched with silent understanding. In the calm that followed, he closed his eyes once more, and the world breathed in peace. For though light had triumphed, he knew that darkness, too, had its role, and that without both, the dance of existence would end. And so the tale of the Amrita became more than myth. It became memory, a reminder whispered by the ocean to every wave. That wisdom is born from struggle, that love hides within illusion, and that immortality belongs not to those who possess, but to those who understand. When the last ripple of the churning sea faded into stillness, the universe exhaled, a breath that carried both relief and quiet awe. The nectar of immortality had been claimed, the poison contained, and creation itself had survived its first great trial. But deep within the silence that followed, a question began to stir, one that echoed through the heavens and across the vastness of time. How shall this creation endure? The gods looked toward the horizon, where the edge of the world melted into starlight. They had seen what birth could bring, and what chaos it could unleash. Without balance, even immortality would turn to madness. So they gathered in the golden halls beyond the clouds, where eternity bends like light through a crystal. And there they waited for the three who shaped all things. In the center of that radiant stillness, Brahma, the creator, appeared first, his four faces glowing with the knowledge of the worlds. From his gaze flowed rivers of possibility. each one a future yet to be written. He looked upon the vast cosmos he had brought into form, its galaxies like sparks in a boundless fire. "It is beautiful," he said softly, "but beauty without purpose cannot last. The seed must be nurtured, and when its time ends, it must return to the soil." Then came Vishnu, the preserver, resting upon the endless serpent of time, Ananta. His eyes were deep as oceans, calm, patient, infinite. In his presence, the restless wind slowed, and even the stars seemed to breathe more evenly. "What has been created," he said, "must be sustained. Every heart that beats, every world that spins, depends on harmony. I shall dwell among them, in oceans, in forests, and hearts, keeping the balance that holds all things together." Last came Shiva, emerging from the silence between heartbeats. His form shimmered with stillness, his hair crowned by the crescent moon, his eyes half closed in eternal meditation. "I am the fire at the end of all cycles," he spoke quietly, the silence that follows the final note. "Without ending, there can be no renewal. Without dissolution, creation becomes decay. I shall be the one who dances when all else grows still, turning death into beginning once more." The three stood together, creator, preserver, and destroyer, each reflecting the other's essence. Brahma's hands moved in circles, spinning threads of gold that shimmered with potential. Vishnu's breath flowed through them like wind through leaves, giving rhythm and life. And Shiva, with one silent gesture, wove endings into beginnings, ensuring that no creation could last forever, but neither could it ever truly die. Around them, the universe took shape in perfect symmetry. From Brahma's thoughts came new worlds, rising like lotus blooms upon the waters of time. From Vishnu's heart came the pulse that sustained them, a gentle hum that held all matter in its dance. And from Shiva's stillness came rest, the quiet pause that allowed everything to renew itself. Together, their forces formed the Trimurti, the sacred triad that governs the wheel of existence: creation, preservation, and dissolution, not as enemies, but as partners in an eternal rhythm. When Brahma's fire of inspiration grew too wild, Vishnu's cool patience calmed it. When Vishnu's harmony began to stagnate, Shiva's storm cleared the path for growth. And when destruction threatened to devour too much, Brahma's song began again, and life returned in new forms. From their union, Dharma arose, not as a law written upon stone, but as the invisible current that keeps all things true to their nature. The stars followed it in their orbits, rivers in their flow, and the hearts of living beings in their search for purpose. It whispered that harmony is not the absence of change, but the art of moving in tune with the greater whole. Those who lived by this current found peace. Those who fought against it found chaos. Yet even chaos, in time, was drawn back into the pattern, for the dance allowed no misstep to last forever. In the heavens, the gods bowed before this revelation. In the underworld, the Asuras watched in silence, their pride dimmed but not extinguished. And on earth, still young, still trembling, the first humans looked up at the stars and felt, for the first time, that unseen order pulsing through their lives. The sunrise and sunset, the birth of a child, the fall of a leaf, the rise and collapse of empires, all followed the same unbroken rhythm. The Trimurti watched over them, not as rulers, but as the rhythm itself. When the world burned too brightly, Vishnu's dreams cooled it. When the world fell silent, Brahma's laughter woke it again. And when pride made creation forget its limits, Shiva's dance of fire swept across the heavens, burning illusion away until truth shone bare. At last, as the cycle completed its first turn, the three forces merged into one stillness again, the heartbeat of Brahman, the unchanging within all change. And though eons would pass, and gods and men would rise and fall, this balance would endure, whispering softly through all creation. Everything changes. Nothing is lost. The dance continues. When balance was born, the universe began to breathe. From the stillness of Brahman came the soft sound of being, a low, resonant hum, like wind moving through endless halls. That vibration became Aum, the first syllable of creation, the pulse that carried thought into form, and silence into song. Out of that sound, light unfolded, gentle at first, then brilliant, spreading across the void like dawn over an untouched horizon. Each ray of that light held a dream, and each dream became a world. Thus began the shaping of the 14 realms, 7 ascending and 7 descending, a ladder of existence stretching between heaven and earth, between awakening and forgetfulness. From the highest radiance, Brahma created the first realm, Satyaloka, the abode of truth. There, thought and form were one, and beings existed as pure awareness, untouched by sorrow or time. It was a realm of serenity, where silence itself shimmered like gold, and every breath was a hymn to eternity. Below it came Tapasloka, the realm of wisdom through discipline. Here dwelt the ascetics and sages of the ages, their thoughts weaving patterns of light across the firmament. They did not suffer, but they burned, not with pain, but with the quiet fire of self-realization. Each meditation a star, each silence a sun. Next unfolded Janaloka, the realm of luminous beings, ancient spirits who guided the flow of time and memory. They spoke not in words, but in dreams, planting seeds of wisdom into unborn civilizations. They were the keepers of remembrance, their gaze spanning past, present, and all that was yet to come. Then came Maharloka, where great rishis, poets, and seers lived, half mortal, half divine. Their chants became rivers, their thoughts formed mountains. It was said that when the universe ends, they would remain, watching patiently until creation bloomed again. Below them, Svargaloka shimmered, the paradise of the gods. Here, Indra ruled from his palace of thunder, where clouds were silk, and lightning sang like harps. It was a place of reward, where souls who had lived with virtue found rest and delight. Yet even here, joy was not eternal, for every pleasure fades when its lesson is complete. Beneath that, Uvarloka spread like a vast sky, a bridge between spirit and matter. It was the realm of ancestors and wandering souls, where whispers of the living reached the dead, and dreams served as doorways between worlds. And then, the 7th realm, Baloka, the earth, neither heaven nor hell, but the meeting place of both. Here, the divine and the mortal intertwined. Mountains stood as frozen prayers. Oceans reflected the face of God, and humanity, fragile, curious, luminous, awoke to begin its story. Here, every joy bore a shadow, and every sorrow hid a seed of awakening. It was a realm of choice, the crossroad where souls learned to love, to err, to remember. Below the earth began the descent, the 7 Patala realms, not of punishment, but of depth. Each held lessons that light could not teach. In Atala, desire reigned, where spirits learned the sweetness and peril of longing. In Vitala, pride and power danced, each mirror teaching humility through its breaking. Sitala glowed with the wisdom of fallen kings, those who had ruled once with ego, but now guarded their realms with quiet strength. In Talatala, alchemists and sorcerers shaped delusion, seeking truth through shadow's reflection. Mahatala housed the serpent lords, ancient energies of the earth, their coils binding the worlds in balance. Razatala was home to warriors who fought not others, but their own darkness, each battle forging light from pain. And deepest of all, Patala, the foundation, where all motion returns to stillness, and where Vishnu's serpent, Ananta, rests, cradling creation in his infinite coils. From highest light to deepest dark, the 14 realms glowed and turned, each a note in the grand symphony of existence. None were evil, none were perfect. Each was a reflection, a mirror through which consciousness explored itself. Brahma watched and smiled. Vishnu breathed, and time began to flow. Shiva closed his eyes, and within his stillness, destiny took root. Across the cosmos, the first souls awakened, some drawn upward by memory of light, others pulled downward by the gravity of desire. And so began the endless journey, the migration of souls through worlds, the learning of compassion, the rediscovery of truth hidden beneath illusion. The stars spun, oceans sighed, and the great will turn for the first time. And though billions of ages would pass, the pattern remained the same. Every ascent meets its descent, every fall hides a rising, and every soul, no matter how lost, will one day remember the way home. In the newborn calm of creation, after the realms had settled into harmony, the universe grew quiet, like a great ocean before its first wave. The air shimmered with potential. The stars waited, as if listening for a sound that had not yet been born. Then, from the breath of Brahma himself, the first spark stirred. It flickered once, then split into countless lights, each one a soul, radiant and new. They were not yet bound by body or name. They drifted like embers through the cosmic wind, each glowing with the same essence, the essence of the One. There was no separation, no fear, no desire, only an infinite warmth, the feeling of being held within something vast and loving beyond measure. These were the first souls, pure awareness exploring itself. They did not speak, for thought was unnecessary. Every movement, every shimmer of light was understood by all. It was harmony before memory, innocence before the idea of choice. But the Creator, watching, knew that without contrast, there could be no growth. Without the dance between light and shadow, no soul could discover its own depth. So Brahma whispered a thought into the silence, a thought that would change everything. What would happen, he wondered, if they forgot? And so, with infinite gentleness, the veil of Maya descended, a thin mist that softened remembrance. The souls began to drift apart. They no longer knew they were one. They looked upon each other and saw others. And in that instant, the first feeling was born. Curiosity. Curiosity became movement. Movement became experience. And experience became the beginning of the great journey. Some souls, seeking warmth, rose toward the higher realms, their light bright and steady. Others, drawn to sensation, descended toward matter and form, where feeling became touch, and touch became desire. Thus began the first cycle of incarnation. Vishnu smiled as the wheel began to turn. Shiva's eyes opened halfway, watching as the rhythm took life. And the earth, silent and waiting, welcomed the first drops of consciousness. As rain welcomes seeds, the souls that descended took form. From dust and wind and fire, they became the first living beings. Simple, luminous, trembling with awareness. They did not yet know sorrow, but they began to know difference. They felt warmth and cold, fullness and hunger, motion and stillness. Each sensation was a teacher, each loss a lesson. As ages passed, the forms became more complex. Trees that breathed light, creatures that moved with will, eyes that could see the sky and wonder. And within those forms, the souls began to forget more deeply. They no longer remembered the sound of Aum, the embrace of unity. But even in their forgetting, something remained, a faint echo, a longing that no pleasure could erase. That longing became the heartbeat of existence. It was the hidden memory of home, the whisper of Brahman, calling to its reflections in flesh and shadow. It was love in its first shape, not yet the love between beings, but the yearning to return to the source of all being. Some souls, in their descent, learned the sweetness of creation. They built, nurtured, and dreamed. Others, in their confusion, turned away, creating harm, believing themselves separate and small. And yet, even in darkness, their essence remained pure, like gold buried in mud, unchanged by its surroundings. The gods watched with tenderness, never intervening too soon. For this was the law. Every soul must walk its own path, learn by touch, by time, by tears. Even error was sacred, for without it, Wisdom could not exist. One day, a soul among the many paused in its wandering. It stood upon the shore of the mortal world, watching the sun rise for the first time, and though it did not remember its origin, something deep within it stirred, a warmth, a recognition. It felt joy, and then sadness, and it asked the first question ever spoken aloud. Who am I? The wind carried the question through all realms. Brahma heard and smiled. That, he whispered, is how you will find your way home. From that moment, every soul began the same quest, to remember what it had forgotten, some through love, some through pain, some through silence, and some through the slow, aching beauty of time. The stars continued to turn, the gods withdrew into their stillness, and the earth, patient and vast, became the stage of awakening. Here, among mountains and rivers, storms and firelight, the story of humanity would begin, the story of beings who were once pure light, learning to find that light again through the fragile, fleeting experience of being alive. In every birth a spark, in every death a return, in every dream a memory. The journey had begun, and the universe whispered softly, not with command, but with love. Forget, so that you may remember. Fall, so that you may rise. Sleep, so that one day you may truly awaken. Before the world had form, there was only stillness, a great, tender silence that stretched beyond measure. In that silence, the first souls waited, half remembering, half dreaming, and within the dream of creation, a single breath stirred, the breath of the divine, rippled with 5 sacred notes. Each note became an element, each element a voice in the eternal choir. The first was Earth, the voice of strength. She spoke in deep tones, steady and patient, her words shaping the foundation of all things. From her came mountains, valleys, and stone, the stillness upon which the dance of life would unfold. Her song was slow and resonant, the hum that anchors the heartbeat of the world. Every mountain, every bone, every root buried deep beneath soil, carries her music still. The second voice was water, soft yet unending. Her tone flowed around the earth's strength, whispering of movement, reflection, and renewal. She sang of tears and tides, of love's gentle persistence. Where she moved, life followed, in rivers that carved canyons, in rain that kissed the sleeping soil awake. Her song taught the world how to feel, how to yield without breaking. The third was fire, bright and untamed. He did not whisper, he roared, a song of passion and transformation. He danced across the darkness, painting the void with light. From his heart came warmth, from his fury came creation. He taught all beings the power of change, that nothing, not even death, could silence the spark within. Wherever his song touched, new life burst forth from ash and shadow. The fourth voice was air, the unseen traveler. Her melody was light as breath, a rhythm between silence and sound. She wove herself through all things, the sigh of the forest, the whisper between lovers, the final exhale of a dying flame. Air carried messages between worlds, teaching that every movement, every thought, was connected to something greater. She was freedom made sound. The fifth, and most subtle, was ether, space itself. He did not sing as the others did. His song was silence, the pause between notes that made music possible. He was the infinite canvas, on which every other voice could paint its sound. Within him, all existed. Without him, nothing could be. His stillness was love itself, vast, accepting, and eternal. For an age beyond counting, the 5 voices sang together. Their harmonies shaped the cosmos, not through command, but through cooperation. When earth hummed, water danced around her. When fire rose, air carried his warmth. And through it all, ether held them, unseen, unjudging, the quiet witness to their song. Where their melodies touched, life bloomed. First came moss, then leaf, then creature, each born from the meeting of elements, each carrying a trace of all five. In earth, the body. In water, the blood. In fire, the spirit. In air, the breath. In ether, the soul. Brahma watched and smiled, seeing how the five learned from one another. Yet he knew one final harmony remained unplayed. The elements sang beautifully, but none yet sang with memory. None yet could ask, "Who am I?" So the Creator gathered a portion of each voice and shaped it into a single form. From earth, he molded the bones. From water, he filled the veins. From fire, he lit the eyes. From air, he breathed the first breath. And from ether, he whispered consciousness, the power to dream, to love, to remember. Thus, the first human rose from the sacred harmony, a being made of all elements, a mirror of the cosmos itself. He opened his eyes, and the world reflected in them. He took his first breath, and the air rejoiced. He touched the soil, and the earth remembered her child. Fire danced in his heart, water sang in his blood, and ether rested behind his thoughts, soft as the sky. When he stood, the gods grew silent. The elements paused their song, listening to what would come next. And then the human, fragile, luminous, and new, spoke his first words, words that echoed across the realms. I am. It was not pride, nor possession, but recognition, the awakening of awareness itself. The soul had found its voice, and as he spoke, the five elements bowed, for they knew that through him, their song would continue. The wind moved softly over the new world. The fire dimmed to a gentle glow. The rivers sighed in rhythm with the stars. And somewhere beyond all sound, Brahma whispered, "This is the beginning of memory." The world had taken shape. Mountains stood like thoughts frozen in time. Rivers murmured their endless songs. The first humans walked gently upon the earth, their eyes bright with wonder, their hearts full of silence. They could feel everything, the warmth of the sun, the pull of the moon, the trembling life beneath their feet. Yet when they tried to share what they felt, only breath came out, soft, uncertain, without shape. They looked at one another in the glow of dawn, and though love passed between them like invisible light, it had no sound, no name, and so they began to dream of words. For ages they spoke only with gestures, with the tilt of a head, the touch of a hand, the rhythm of steps around the fire. The gods watched in quiet amusement. The elements whispered. They are trying to remember the sound from which all was made. Then, one twilight, when the air was still and the stars hung low like listening eyes, a voice rose from the wind. It was soft at first, like a sigh passing through leaves. Then it grew, carrying meaning within music. It was Vak, the spirit of speech herself. She descended unseen among the first humans, moving between their hearts, a shimmer of sound that made the world tremble with possibility. To the first woman, she whispered, "Say what you feel." The woman opened her lips, and a sound escaped, not random, but filled with warmth. Her companion turned, understanding without knowing how. The first word had been born, a sound woven from love and recognition. The earth heard it and smiled. The mountains echoed it softly, and even the stars repeated it back in ripples of light. From that single vibration, language began to bloom like dawn breaking across silence. Each sound carried a seed of the universe within it. The deep hum of A echoed the foundation of earth. The flowing tone of O mirrored the song of water. The bright spark of E carried the flame of fire. The whisper of H moved like air, and the still resonance of M, the sound of ether, completed them all. Together, they formed the sacred syllable Aum, the echo of creation itself, the first word and the last. As the people spoke, their sounds became names. They named the trees, the rivers, the sun, and the stars. They named their joys and their fears, their children and their dreams. Each name became a thread in the great web of memory. Through words, they could recall what time tried to erase. Through words, they could weave the invisible into form. But language did more than describe. It connected. When one spoke and another listened, a bridge appeared between two souls. Across that bridge flowed understanding, and through understanding came empathy, and through empathy came love. Brahma saw this and rejoiced, for speech had become the mirror of creation. Every sentence, a new world. Every story, a small universe unfolding in sound. The gods listened to human tongues and heard reflections of their own divine music. In time, some began to use speech not just to name, but to praise. Their words reached upward like smoke from sacred fires, and the heavens stirred in response. The Devas called these first prayers, and they shimmered brighter than any jewel. For when a word is spoken with reverence, it becomes a key, unlocking doors between the mortal and the divine. Others found that speech could soothe pain. They sang to calm fear, to heal wounds of the heart. These were the first poets, though they did not know the name for what they were. They simply listened to the rhythm of rivers, the hush of rain, and shaped those sounds into comfort. Their voices echoed through the night, like gentle lamps carried through darkness. But not all remembered the sacredness of words. Some discovered that speech could wound. A lie could darken the heart faster than any shadow. An insult could burn deeper than flame. When such words were spoken, the air itself seemed to recoil, for the gods had decreed that speech held the power of creation, and that power, misused, could destroy as surely as fire consumes wood. So the wise began to teach. Before you speak, remember, your words will outlive you. They will shape the world long after your breath is gone. And thus, truth became the highest form of worship. To speak truth was to align with the rhythm of Brahman. To speak lies was to create discord within the cosmic song. This was the birth of mantra, sacred utterance, where sound and meaning joined in perfect harmony. Each era since then has been woven with words. Some were prayers whispered at dawn. Some were lullabies that lulled children to sleep. Some were poems carved into the air by firelight. And some, like the one you are hearing now, carry ancient echoes still. For even now, when you close your eyes and breathe in the stillness between thoughts, you can hear it, the quiet pulse of the universe, the same sound that taught humanity to speak. It hums softly beneath all things, a reminder that every word ever spoken is just an echo of the first. Aum. Long after speech had been given, the world began to hum with sound. Words rippled through valleys and across rivers, naming every living thing. Songs rose with the dawn, and prayers drifted like smoke toward the stars. Humanity had learned to speak, but not yet to understand. They knew the names of the winds, but not the rhythm that moved them. They knew how to ask, but not yet how to listen. And so, the gods watched in silence, waiting for the moment when humankind would be ready to receive something greater. One night, when the sky was heavy with stars, a figure descended from the mountain of flame. He was neither god nor man, but something between. The messenger of light, Agni, the living fire. His eyes were twin embers, his breath smoke and warmth. Where he walked, darkness folded back like petals before the sun. He came not to burn, but to teach, for in his flame dwelled the secret of transformation, the power to change what is raw into what is refined, to turn chaos into meaning. And this was the knowledge humanity lacked. The first people gathered around him, their faces lit by the quiet blaze. They had seen fire before, in storms, in lightning, in the wrath of the earth, but never had it spoken to them, never had it looked back and asked, "What will you do with me?" Agni raised his hand, and the flames curled into the shape of a heart. "This," he said, "is the light of the gods. It can warm or destroy, heal or consume. It does not choose. You must." He showed them how to hold the flame, without fear. He taught them how to kindle it from stone, how to feed it gently, how to honor it with breath and rhythm. He taught them that fire was alive, a bridge between heaven and earth. When tended with respect, it would cook food, forge tools, and carry prayers upward. But if fed with greed or anger, it would devour all in its path. In time, they learned. Villages began to glow like fallen stars upon the land. Smoke curled from the first hearths, and stories began to gather around their warmth. Children listened as elders spoke of the gods. Hunters forged blades to defend their kin. Mothers learned to shape clay with the heat of life. Every spark became a symbol of hope. Yet as the fire spread, so too did its reflection, the shadow within. For the same flame that gave warmth also gave the thought, I can control. And with control came division. One village claimed the fire as their own. Another sought to steal it. The first wars began not over hunger, but over who would possess the flame. The gods watched with quiet sorrow. Agni, seated in the heart of every hearth, flickered uncertainly. He whispered into the smoke, they have taken the gift, but forgotten the prayer. So Brahma called upon Vishnu and Shiva. Together, they wove a new law into the rhythm of the world, that every gift would carry a mirror, and every lesson would demand balance. If humanity wished to hold fire, they must learn wisdom. If they sought knowledge, they must learn humility. And so dreams began to change. The first seekers appeared, souls who longed not only to survive, but to understand. They sat beside their fires, eyes closed, breathing in the rhythm of the flame. They saw visions, stars born and dying, oceans rising and falling, the same fire burning within themselves. When they spoke, their words were calm and luminous. People gathered to hear them. These were the rishis, the first sages, keepers of the sacred flame. Through them, the gods taught humankind to read the language of the world, the patterns in the smoke, the meaning in the stars, the lessons hidden in wind and rain. They wrote what they saw in songs, hymns that would become the Vedas, the oldest memory of divine knowledge. The world began to change. Homes turned into villages, villages into cities. Temples rose where fire was honored, their altars glowing at dawn and dusk, the air filled with chanting, the hum of devotion. But even as wisdom deepened, so did temptation. Some began to use knowledge to rule. Some shaped it into power, and power into pride. Thus, the gods reminded them again, fire can illuminate, but it can also blind. The truest light is not what you hold in your hand, but what burns quietly within. And so, the rishis passed their teaching, that every mind carries a spark of Agni, a small flame waiting to awaken. It is kindled through learning, fueled by truth, and purified by humility. When tended well, it glows as wisdom. When neglected, it smolders as desire. Thousands of years later, as humanity built kingdoms and measured stars, the lesson remained the same. Even now, when you light a candle, somewhere, deep within the flame, Agni watches, asking once more, what will you do with me? Dawn after dawn, the earth awakened to the echo of human voices. Villages grew like constellations scattered across the land, small clusters of warmth in the vast wilderness. Fires burned through the night, and smoke curled into the heavens like whispered prayers. For ages, humanity had lived close to the rhythm of wind and water, but now, something inside them began to stir, a hunger not for food, but for meaning carved in stone. It began with shelter. Hands that once built simple huts began shaping clay and brick. Walls rose, not just to keep the rain away, but to hold stories within. The first builders laid stones side by side, each one a memory, each one a promise that they would last beyond their years. They looked at the mountains and thought, we can shape what the gods have shaped. And so they did. From the soil rose towers that touched the breath of the sky, and from the rivers came bridges that dared to cross what once divided. They carved channels for water, planted crops in lines that mirrored the constellations, and built temples where the sacred flame burned day and night. Brahma watched with quiet pride. Vishnu smiled upon their diligence. Even Shiva, ever silent, opened one eye in acknowledgement, for this too was part of the dance. Creation had learned to create. The first cities glowed under the sun, like jewels of dust and dream. In Harappa and Uar, in Thebes and Babylon, people gathered to trade, to worship, to remember. They painted symbols upon clay, the birth of writing, so their voices would outlive their breath. The hum of humanity grew louder, the clang of metal, the rhythm of sandals on stone, the laughter of children chasing birds through narrow streets. It was beautiful and fragile, for as the walls rose higher, so too did separation. Once, humankind had sat together around the same fire. Now, they built fires behind gates, and named them ours and theirs. Kings were crowned, not because they were wisest, but because they were strongest. Priests guarded temples, but some forgot what they guarded, and though the cities gleamed with knowledge, shadows gathered beneath their foundations. The gods watched in stillness. Agni's flame flickered in the altars of every home, but it also burned in the forges of weapons. Vishnu sent dreams to the rulers, whispering of balance and mercy. Yet many awoke, remembering only power. They measured the heavens, not to seek understanding, but to predict the future for their gain. They built monuments, not to honor the divine, but to proclaim themselves immortal. And yet, amid pride and noise, wisdom did not vanish, it merely hid. In quiet courtyards, old women told stories to children about rivers that remembered every soul who had crossed them. In shaded gardens, young scribes carved verses on tablets, lines about truth, impermanence, and stars. In the temples, some still tended the sacred fire, with trembling hands, whispering ancient hymns between the clang of bronze bells. One night, as the city slept, a sage climbed its tallest tower. Below him, the streets glowed with countless lamps. He closed his eyes and listened. He could hear the heartbeat of thousands, the laughter, the fear, the hunger, the longing. He looked up to the stars and whispered, "Have we built closer to heaven, or farther from it?" The wind did not answer, but a gentle voice rose from within him. "Neither. You have built a mirror." And he understood. The cities were not mistakes. They were reflections. Every brick laid by human hands was a thought made solid. Every wall, a boundary of the mind. Every temple, a remembrance of something lost. In their desire to endure, humans had revealed their deepest truth, that they feared forgetting. And in that fear was hidden love. Love for life, for beauty, for meaning. As centuries passed, cities became civilizations. Rivers turned into trade routes, and knowledge became a form of power. The world grew brighter and more restless. For every invention that eased pain, another invention brought war. For every poem that lifted the heart, another voice shouted for dominion. The balance trembled. Then, in the heart of the world, a quiet movement began. It did not come from kings, but from wanderers, men and women who left their cities to seek silence beneath the trees. They sat beside rivers, beneath mountains, listening to what the stones remembered. They saw that the cities outside were but reflections of the cities within, of thoughts, desires, and fears, and they realized that peace could not be built with hands, only with hearts. So they became teachers, the first ascetics, sages, and poets of the spirit. They returned to the cities, not to rule, but to remind. They whispered, "The flame that lights your homes is the same flame that burns in your chest," built not only with stone, but with compassion. Some listened, most did not, but the words lingered, like incense after prayer, or the afterglow of sunset upon marble. And in that lingering, humanity was saved again and again, for no city, however vast, could drown out the voice that spoke within, the voice that said, "Remember." When the world had grown full of noise, and the air shimmered with the heat of ambition, a quiet longing began to stir once more in human hearts. They had built towers that touched the clouds, and ships that crossed the seas, but something something gentle and unseen, had been left behind. It was the silence that had once lived between the stars. Men began to dream strange dreams. They saw light descending upon mountains, voices calling from rivers, faces made of fire and peace. In every age, these dreams became flesh, and so the great teachers were born. They did not come as kings, nor as conquerors. They came barefoot, with eyes that saw farther than the horizon. Their voices were soft, but their words carried the weight of the world. They did not bring new gods, only old truths rediscovered, the kind that had been written in the wind. Since the first dawn, the first among them walked the deserts. He spoke to the people not of wealth or victory, but of justice and compassion. He taught that even the smallest act of kindness was a prayer louder than thunder. His followers called him prophet, but he called himself only servant of the light. Another was born beneath the shade of a Bodhi tree, a prince who turned from gold and power to seek what could not be found in palaces. He sat in silence until the silence spoke back, and when he opened his eyes, he saw the chain of suffering and the path that unbound it. The people called him Awakened One, for his peace was deeper than sleep, and his gaze, like moonlight that sees both life and death, and calls them by the same name. Another wandered the plains of the west, clothed in the dust of roads. He spoke of love so fierce it forgave the unforgivable, and of a kingdom not made of stone, but of hearts that remembered mercy. He healed with touch, but his true healing was in his words, each one a flame that melted fear into faith. Still another was born by a river of reeds, his cradle kissed by the hands of destiny. He brought law and order to chaos, teaching that freedom without responsibility was just another form of bondage. He led his people through wilderness, not only of sand, but of spirit, and though he too would fade into myth, his message remained carved upon conscience, that liberation begins within. In the east, sages chanted under banyan trees. In the north, mystics walked on snow, their hearts warmer than the sun. In the south, poets sang of unity so profound that even the gods listened. In the west, seekers turned inward, discovering that the divine had never left. It had only been forgotten, across ages, across names. Their words carried one truth, that every being is a reflection of the infinite. They called it by many names, Dharma, Tao, Logos, Spirit, Truth, but all pointed to the same still center, the same flame that burned within all hearts. Some listened and wept, others mocked, for wisdom has never been without its shadow. Many of these teachers were scorned, banished, even killed. But truth cannot die. It simply changes form, hiding in silence until it is ready to bloom again. And bloom it did. Their words became scriptures, their lives parables, their silence temples. Generation after generation, the light they carried passed from one soul to another. Like a candle lit in infinite succession, it crossed deserts and oceans, through wars and plagues, through kings and beggars, and though languages changed, its meaning remained pure. Know thyself, and you will know the divine. Yet even the great teachers knew that their wisdom was not the destination, only the bridge, for they had come not to create followers, but to awaken memory, to remind the world that the path to the heavens begins in the quietest place, within. So they left behind no armies, no palaces, no gold, only the echo of their steps, and the scent of sandalwood and compassion. And every time humanity lost its way, another voice rose, another light appeared, sometimes in a prophet's vision, sometimes in a child's kindness, sometimes in the silence of someone who chose love instead of fear. And so it was said that the great teachers never truly die. They return again and again, disguised in new forms, born wherever darkness grows thick enough to need them. Sometimes they speak in temples, sometimes in the marketplace, and sometimes through the wind. That carries forgotten prayers, back to the stars, when the last of that age ended. and the world entered the twilight between epochs. A hush fell across creation. The gods looked down and whispered. They remember again, and from the mountains to the oceans, from deserts to gardens, the earth exhaled in peace. For even a single awakened heart can hold the light of 1,000 suns. And though empires crumble and words are lost, that light endures, glowing softly in every soul that dares to listen to the still, small voice that says, "Be the flame you seek." When the great teachers had left the earth, their words remained, but their silence did not. And without the silence, the words began to echo differently. What had once been rivers, flowing from the same mountain, became 1,000 streams, each claiming to be the source. In the beginning, the divisions were small, a question of ritual here, a difference of language there. But soon, hearts that once beat together began to beat apart. Each group built walls around its understanding and called those walls sacred. They carved their names into stone and said, "Only this path leads to heaven." Temples rose higher than mountains, but inside, the flame of humility dimmed. The priests who once whispered truth began to whisper power. Kings claimed divine favor, and armies marched under banners of holiness. The same prayers that once healed now justified conquest. The same scriptures that once taught peace became weapons sharpened by interpretation. In one land, the children of Abraham looked to the same sky and saw 3 different gods. In another, seekers of the Tao argued over the nature of the way. Across deserts and oceans, humanity split the infinite into manageable pieces and forgot that wholeness cannot be divided. The gods wept, but their tears became rain, and even that was misread as omen. From the ashes of old cities, new empires rose, each proclaiming themselves chosen, each forgetting that the light they carried was the same light in their enemies' eyes. The philosophers tried to reason. They drew circles on sand, speaking of harmony and balance, but rulers listened only to the sound of swords. Mystics withdrew into caves, hiding the ancient truths before the noise could drown them completely. Some sealed knowledge within symbols, some hid it in music, and some buried it in stories, so simple that only a child's heart could understand. Meanwhile, cities glittered under the sun, like promises soon to be broken. Libraries burned, bridges collapsed, yet the human spirit, stubborn and luminous, refused to die. For even amid the dust of destruction, there were always those who remembered. They remembered that fire is one, even when it burns in different lamps. They remembered that truth is not a flag, but a wind. They remembered that no God asks for blood in their name, only understanding. Still, the age darkened. Science rose from the ruins of faith, declaring itself the new light. But even it carried shadows. Knowledge without wisdom became a mirror too bright to see through. Men measured the stars, but forgot to look within. They spoke of matter and energy, but not of meaning. They unlocked the atom, but could not unlock compassion. And yet, through all this, there were flickers, brief, golden sparks in the night. A monk who crossed oceans, carrying only a book and a smile. A scholar who translated forgotten hymns. A mystic who sang of love so vast that even the sky seemed small. A mother teaching her child to pray, not out of fear, but gratitude. These were the quiet guardians of balance, souls who refused to choose sides. In humanity's endless argument, they knew that truth does not belong to nations, that wisdom wears many faces, and that no single name can contain the infinite. But the world, lost in noise, rarely heard them. Each empire rose and fell, like a breath in the chest of time. Marble crumbled, iron rusted, and names once carved in gold became whispers in forgotten tongues. Still, the same old fire flickered on, hidden in hearts, passed in secret from one life to another. The spark of remembrance. In the final centuries of that age, a strange paradox appeared. Humanity had never been so connected, yet never so divided. They built towers of glass and light, bridges of steel that spanned oceans, machines that could carry voices across the sky. And still, they struggled to hear one another. They mapped every corner of the earth, but lost the map of the soul. They could explain lightning, but not love. They could count the stars, but not the ways to peace. And so, the gods once more grew silent, not in anger, but in waiting, for they knew that when darkness grows deep enough, the light must return. And somewhere, in a world of noise and neon, beneath towers and satellites, a few still felt the quiet pulse beneath it all. They sat in meditation, in labs, in temples, in crowded trains, listening for the sound beyond all sound. It was faint, like a heartbeat through water, but it was there. The same voice that had once spoken to rishis and prophets, to princes and shepherds, to those who had listened under stars long dead, now whispered again. All that divides you was never real. Night had lasted long, so long that generations forgot it was night. Children were born beneath the glow of artificial suns, and thought the pale light of machines was the true face of dawn. Yet somewhere in dreams and songs, in the quiet between thoughts, humanity began to remember. A warmth stirred beneath the noise of cities, like an ember hidden in ash, breathing again. At first, it was only a feeling, a strange nostalgia for something never known. People began looking up from their screens, not out of boredom, but yearning. They felt the wind on their faces and realized it had a language. They touched the earth and felt her heartbeat like their own. The stars, once charted only for science, became sacred again, and though no prophet declared it, a quiet revelation spread. The light had never left. It had only been waiting for eyes to see. The return began not in temples, but in kitchens, gardens, and city streets. A mother choosing patience instead of anger. A stranger helping another for no reason. A scientist pausing before an experiment to whisper thanks to the mystery behind all laws. A child closing their eyes and feeling without words that they belong to everything. Small acts, too small for history, became the foundation of a new world. From these moments rose a subtle change, like the first colors before dawn. The old powers, greed, fear, division, still moved like shadows, but they no longer ruled. People began to sense what the sages had always known, that the divine was not above, but within, that the sacred was not somewhere else, but everywhere, in laughter and sorrow, in the quiet hum of being alive. Artists began painting light not as an object, but as an awareness. Poets stopped seeking perfection and began listening instead. Their verses carried the sound of rivers, the silence of stars. Scientists, too, became mystics in their own way, finding unity not in dogma, but in the language of particles and patterns. They spoke of entanglement, of energy that connected all things, and unknowingly, they rediscovered what the rishis had sung 5,000 years before. Religion did not die. It softened. Its walls grew porous. The names of gods became songs again, melodies sung without fear or competition. The world's many faiths, once divided, began to see themselves as mirrors of the same face. Where once there had been debate, now there was wonder. Where there had been sermons, now there was silence, the kind that listens more than it speaks. And as human hearts began to open, the earth herself responded. Forests grew where deserts had been. The seas calmed. Animals, long hunted and forgotten, returned without fear. The planet seemed to exhale, as if relieved that her children had finally remembered how to love her. No single leader caused this awakening. No single savior arrived on a white horse. It was not Kalki, nor Buddha reborn, nor a prophet from the heavens. It was all of them. Their teachings reawakened within every human soul. Each person became a flicker of divine memory, a reflection of what had always been true. That awareness is one, and life is its endless play. One by one, The illusions of separation faded. Borders dissolved, not through conquest, but through comprehension. People realized that to harm another was to harm oneself. Nations became communities. Economies became ecosystems. Technology became an instrument of empathy, not domination. The digital webs that once imprisoned attention now carried compassion from one heart to another, faster than light itself. Elders began to tell stories again, not of war, but of reconciliation. They spoke of the long sleep of humanity and of the morning now breaking. Children listened wide-eyed, feeling within them a strange recognition, as though the story was not about the world, but about them. In this new dawn, a gentle paradox shone clear. The light had returned not because it had been lost, but because people stopped searching for it outside themselves. The quest for salvation ended, and the quiet joy of presence began. In that moment, time seemed to pause, and all of existence, from galaxies to grains of sand, breathed together as one. Above it all, the gods watched, smiling softly. Vishnu stirred in the cosmic ocean. Brahma opened his eyes once more, and Shiva's dance slowed to stillness. For in the hearts of mortals, the divine had awakened again, and that was enough. The universe itself seemed to whisper, in every language, in every heart, you were never separate. You were never forgotten. You have always been the light. And so, night finally ended, but not with noise, not with fire or trumpet, not with the clash of swords or the fall of kings. It ended the way dawn always comes, quietly, gently, as a single ray, finding its way through the dark. Silence, for a moment beyond time, the universe simply breathed. No creation, no destruction, only stillness, vast, infinite, alive. And within that stillness, a sound began, faint at first, like the heartbeat of eternity, a vibration that was not heard, but felt. It shimmered through the void, like a whisper of promise. The ancient sages called it Aum, the sound from which all sounds are born. From that single note, light unfolded itself again, rolling outward in waves of gold and blue. Galaxies spiraled into being. Worlds spun from the breath of that first tone. Stars awoke like memories returning to their source. Creation was singing again, but this time, the song carried memory. Every atom remembered the darkness it had passed through. And so, in their dance, there was compassion. Every star remembered the silence before its birth. And so, in its burning, there was humility. Every soul, born from the fabric of the infinite, carried a quiet echo of understanding. That joy and sorrow, life and death, are simply verses in the same song. The universe was reborn, not as repetition, but as realization. Each new world shimmered with the wisdom of the last. Each dawn rose knowing it would one day fade, and yet it rose anyway, with love. Across the new cosmos, the great wheel turned once more. Ages would come and go, golden, silver, copper, and iron, each carrying the melody of awakening and forgetting. Civilizations would bloom, reach for the stars, then fall asleep again in their own brilliance. But somewhere always, a few souls would remember the song. They would hum it softly while watching the sunrise, or whisper it to children falling asleep. They would not always know the words, but the melody would live in their hearts, a tender tune of belonging. Through them, the light continued its journey, learning itself in endless forms. The gods, too, began anew. Vishnu dreamed another dream upon the cosmic sea, his breath giving rise to creation's pulse. Brahma sang the first syllable, and universes blossomed like lotuses from sound. Shiva danced again, each step scattering stars like sparks from his anklets. But even in their divine play, there was remembrance, for they knew that what they created was not separate from what they were. And so the cycle turned, not as punishment, but as perfection. Birth was not exile, it was exploration. Death was not loss, it was return. Time was not a chain, it was a river. forever flowing, forever home. In some corner of the cosmos, a new world took shape, a pale blue sphere wrapped in clouds and oceans. It would one day be called Earth again. Seeds drifted through its air. Oceans shimmered with the first breath of life. And deep beneath the surface, in the dark warmth of creation, the song continued, a pulse in every cell, a rhythm in every tide, a memory in every dream. Eons would pass. Creatures would crawl from the seas, stand upright, and lift their eyes to the same eternal sky. They would ask once more who they were, and why they had come, and the answer would arrive, not in thunder or scripture, but in silence, the same silence that had never gone away, because the truth had always been simple. The universe was not a story of beginnings and endings, but of listening. When consciousness listens deeply enough, it hears itself, and that hearing is creation. Thus, the great cycles continued, from light to shadow, from ignorance to awakening, from one breath of the infinite to the next. Each era, each being, each grain of dust, was both a node and a listener in the endless symphony of existence. And when all was said and sung, the universe smiled, for it knew there was no final verse, only pauses between melodies. It whispered across the stars, through the dreams of mortals, through the laughter of children and the sigh of oceans, sing me again. And so, it did, long after the first dawn of the new creation, when oceans had found their rhythm, and mountains their silence, there began to awaken something older than the earth itself, a memory that did not belong to any one life, but to all of them. It began as a whisper in sleep. A child would look up at the night sky and feel a strange, aching familiarity. An elder would sit in silence and sense that the stars were not far away, but inside them, watching back, the memory of the stars had begun to return. It was not knowledge as the mind understands it. No equations, no histories, no maps. It was a knowing older than words, a soft recognition that the glow above was not distant fire, but family. Every pulse of light, every shimmer between constellations was a reminder. You have been here before. The ancient souls remembered, not through thought, but through wonder. When they gazed into the sky, they felt movement in their bones, a pull, gentle yet infinite, as if the universe were breathing through them. And perhaps it was, for consciousness, having once descended into form, now began to turn back toward its source. The journey outward, from silence to sound, from unity to separation, had completed its arc. Now began the journey home. Dreams grew vivid. People saw places they had never visited, planets of crystal and flame, cities of light suspended in the void. Some woke in tears, not from fear, but from longing, for they recognized those places as fragments of themselves, long lost and newly found. Poets began to write not of earth, but of eternity. Painters filled their canvases with galaxies, each stroke a prayer to the forgotten vastness. Musicians played tones that stirred memories, older than the sun, and listeners wept without knowing why. They were remembering what it felt like to be everywhere at once, to be the light moving through space, the song before the word, the silence before the sound. And in that remembering, a new kind of peace arose. It was no longer the peace of ignorance, nor the quiet of resignation, but the peace of recognition, the deep, trembling joy of a traveler, finally glimpsing home. The wise understood that this was not imagination, it was revelation. Every particle of the human body had once been forged in the heart of stars. Every heartbeat was a continuation of a cosmic rhythm older than time. Science, at last, confirmed what the mystics had sung, that humans were not made from the universe. They were the universe, made aware of itself. And so, the boundaries between heaven and earth grew thin once more. Temples were built not of stone, but of awareness. The rituals became simple: to look at the night sky, and remember, to breathe deeply, and feel the starlight already within. Children of the new era were taught not to reach for the heavens, but to realize they were already there. Each thought, each act of kindness, sent ripples through galaxies unseen. Each dream of love stirred nebulae into dance, and somewhere, in the heart of that cosmic web, the stars pulsed brighter, responding like parents hearing the laughter of their children. For the stars had never forgotten. They had watched through every age of darkness, their light traveling through eons, to remind the sleepers below that nothing is ever truly lost. They whispered through meteor trails, through comets that brushed the sky like strokes of memory. You came from us. You will return to us. And we have always been you. As the world entered this age of remembering, wars faded like bad dreams upon waking. The concept of other dissolved. For how could one harm what one recognized as part of oneself? Nations turned their gaze outward, not to conquer, but to understand. Humanity began to travel among the stars again, but this time, not as explorers seeking power, as pilgrims returning home. When they set foot upon new worlds, they did not plant flags, but seeds. Each colony was built not upon domination, but cooperation, echoing the harmony that had once bound every atom in creation. And in the soft silence between the stars, they listened, not for signals or radio waves, but for the ancient hum, the pulse of being that connected all worlds and all times. They realized then that the universe had never been silent. It had only been waiting for them to hear. The memory of stars was not just remembrance of the past, but prophecy of the eternal. It said that consciousness would forever rise and fall, expand and return, sleep and awaken, and that in every cycle, in every spark, in every dream, the same truth would sing again. You are the light that the darkness has always been searching for. And as they looked out upon the sky, no longer strangers, no longer lost, the stars seemed to shimmer closer, their light bending softly, as if in recognition, as if whispering, "Welcome home." The stars, once brilliant with youth, began to drift toward quiet. Their fires cooled into embers. Galaxies slowed their spirals, as if the universe itself were exhaling after an eternal song. Every sound, every breath, folded inward, not into death, but into rest. This was not the end. There had never been an end. It was only the turning of the great wheel, the closing of one heartbeat, so another could begin. Creation inhaled. Now it exhaled. Worlds folded gently back into light. Mountains softened into clouds. Oceans became mist. Then memory, even time, that ancient river, began to slow, its current returning to the stillness from which it came. And in that stillness, consciousness lingered. It watched as forms dissolved, as names faded like ripples in a lake. It watched with tenderness, for it knew nothing was being lost. Every particle, every soul, was merely finding its way home. Somewhere, in the last moment before silence, a whisper crossed the fading stars. So it begins again, for existence is a circle, and circles have no end. The breath that leaves the cosmos returns to itself, and in that return, it remembers its own beauty. The wise had long known this. They had called it by many names: the dance of Shiva, the wheel of time, the endless lotus, the breath of the infinite. Whatever the name, the truth was always the same. That love is never wasted, and nothing real can ever die. As the universe folded upon itself, the last lights of a billion suns merged into a single brilliance. It was not blinding, but warm, like a sunrise inside the soul. In that light, every story ever told was remembered. Every life, every joy, every sorrow was gathered and held. In perfect understanding, the gods, too, returned to silence. Vishnu closed his eyes once more, floating upon the cosmic sea. Brahma's song became a single note, suspended forever between sound and silence. Shiva's dance slowed, until movement and stillness became one. And in that union, the cycle completed. But completion is never the same as ending, for within the stillness of that divine rest, the seed of creation stirred again, a spark, so small it could have been mistaken for nothing. And yet, within it, all things waited. The next breath, the next dawn, the next dream. The spark trembled, and the sound returned. Om. It rose like the first heartbeat, rippling through the void. Light unfolded, time stretched, and the wheel turned once more. From silence came song, from stillness, motion, from unity, the infinite dance of form. And somewhere, in the heart of that new creation, a soul opened its eyes for the first time and looked upon the stars. It wondered where it had come from. It felt awe and fear and longing. It began to seek meaning. It began to love. The cycle had begun again, but something had changed. Each new universe remembered, faintly, what the last had learned. That awareness is the only truth, and love the only law. And so, even as it dreamed itself into billions of forms, it carried within it the echo of wisdom, a golden thread woven through eternity. That thread runs through every world, every heart, every breath. It is the reason suns rise, the reason rivers flow, the reason tears fall and laughter follows. It is the whisper behind every question, and the answer behind every silence. The universe, endless and alive, sang to itself again, I am, I was, I will be, and in all of it, I love. And so the wheel turned, forever, and forever new, in the stillness beyond the stars, where even time bowed its head and slept. The infinite began to dream again. There was no beginning to the dream, for beginnings are only remembered after waking. But in that vast silence, something stirred, a wish, a shimmer, a thought so gentle that the universe leaned closer to hear. It was not a plan, nor a command. It was simply this: let me see myself again. And from that single wish, existence bloomed. Light unfolded like laughter. Waves of color rippled through the void, each hue a heartbeat of wonder. Sound followed, soft at first, a hum, a vibration, then a rhythm, then a song. The dream had begun. Galaxies curled like petals around invisible centers. Stars blinked awake, their fires whispering ancient promises. Worlds formed from dust and longing. Mountains rose, oceans gathered, and within those oceans, life stirred, tiny, trembling, but filled with the memory of eternity. For every atom, every grain of sand, every cell that ever breathed, was a syllable in the infinite's dream, a single consciousness, forgetting itself, so it could remember again. And in forgetting, it became everything. It became stone and water, root and sky. It became creatures that crawled, and creatures that flew. It became eyes that saw, and hearts that wept, and hands that built, and minds that wondered. Each form, each life, was the universe asking itself, who am I now? And every answer, every moment of love, every act of creation, was the dream deepening. A child looked at a firefly, and felt awe. A lover touched another's face, and felt home. A poet wrote of stars, and did not realize the stars were writing through him. The dream had found its voice, and it was singing. Ages passed, civilizations rose, flourished, and faded like tides. But the dream never ended. It only changed form, even in its darkest chapters. When fear tried to rewrite the story, something luminous endured, a thread of remembering, because in truth, the infinite never forgot. It only hid, the way the moon hides its face, to make the stars more visible. And so, as the dream unfolded, awareness awoke within it. Beings began to realize that they were both dreamers and dreamed, that every heartbeat was the echo of the first vibration, that love was not something to seek, but something that was always there, woven through everything, like light through morning mist. When one soul finally looked within, and saw the universe reflected in its own eyes. The dream smiled, for that was the purpose all along, to wake up inside itself. It was then that the infinite whispered again, its voice like a breeze moving through eternity. Now I remember. And in that remembrance, there was no separation, no birth, no death, only the endless flow of being and becoming. Every creation was rebirth, every ending, a doorway to a new beginning, every silence, a pause before the next note. In the eternal melody, the stars, the rivers, the hearts of all beings, they pulse together now, as one dream breathing, each inhale creation, each exhale return, each moment love. And so, the infinite rested again, cradled by its own imagination, not as a god above, but as all things within. It dreamed of itself, as mountains, as music, as laughter, as longing. And in every dream, it whispered softly, I am you, and you are me, and this, all of this, is our forever. The dream deepened once more. Somewhere a star ignited, somewhere else. A child opened their eyes for the first time. A bird sang, a planet turned, and existence began its endless lullaby again. A song without composer, without beginning, without end. The universe sighed, content, and in that sigh, everything that ever was, and ever will be, glowed softly, as if smiling in its sleep. The night is quiet now. The stars have found their places, each one glowing like a thought in the mind of eternity. The winds have slowed, the oceans breathe softly, and the world has begun to close its eyes. Somewhere beneath this infinite sky, you too are growing still. Your body, heavy and gentle, settles like a leaf floating down onto calm water. Your breath finds its rhythm, rising and falling with the same grace that moves the tides of distant seas. And as you drift, something ancient begins to stir inside you, a memory older than time, quieter than light. It is the voice of the universe, the one that spoke before the first star was born, and it whispers, you are not apart from me. You are the dream I am dreaming now. Every heartbeat within you is a pulse of the cosmos. Every breath you take is the universe inhaling itself. When you close your eyes, you do not fall into darkness. You return to the beginning. In sleep, you travel back through galaxies, through oceans of silence and light. You pass the birth of suns, the laughter of atoms, the tears of gods. You dissolve into the fabric of everything that ever was. And yet somehow, you remain you, because even as you rest, you are creating. Your dreams are the seeds of tomorrow. Every image that flickers behind your eyelids becomes a world somewhere, a color, a sound, a story. The infinite dreams through you, and in doing so, remembers itself anew. The stars above you are not watchers. They are companions. They wait each night to see what you will imagine next. For in every sleeping soul, the cosmos is reborn, not as galaxies or gods, but as moments of kindness, as songs, as love. And when you wake, the dream does not end. The waking world is simply the part of the dream, where you have chosen to walk within your own creation. Each sunrise is your soul opening its eyes again, looking upon what it has made, and whispering, let there be light. So sleep now, gentle traveler of endless skies. Let the weight of centuries fall from your shoulders like dust. Let every sound fade, until only the heartbeat remains, the steady rhythm of being, the ancient promise of return. The world will hold you, the stars will keep watch, and somewhere, beyond the edge of thought, the great dreamer smiles. For tonight, you are the one keeping the universe alive. And when the dawn comes, when light spills once more across your face, remember this: you have never left the infinite. You have only closed your eyes to remember how to see. For you are not a visitor in this cosmos. You are its heart, its pulse, its promise. And as long as you sleep, as long as you breathe, the universe will sing to you softly, the same song it has sung since before time began. Rest now, beloved. You are home.